Have you ever felt that your life is already decided, no matter how hard you try? Have you wondered whether Shiva's third eye is a real supernatural power or a symbol with a deeper meaning? And what if destiny is not a fixed wall in front of you, but a path that changes with your awareness and choices? Across cultures, people create stories about destiny because the future feels uncertain, and the human mind naturally looks for patterns and meaning. Psychologists say our brains try to connect events to make sense of life, even when we do not have full information. This does not mean destiny is false, but it shows why the idea appears everywhere in history. In Hindu tradition, stories about Shiva, including the third eye, are found in texts such as the Shiva Purana and other Puranic literature. These are religious and mythological texts respected by believers, but not written as scientific or historical records. Scholars often explain that such stories use symbols to teach inner lessons, especially about self-control, awareness, and freedom from harmful desires. In this video, we will honestly explore both sides. We will clearly separate faith-based belief, symbolic meaning, and what psychology and science say about human behavior and change. Some ideas, like chakras, belong to spiritual systems and are not proven in modern biology, and we will say that openly. Other ideas, like how habits shape our future, are well studied and can be verified through research on behavior and the brain. Stay with this journey until the end so you can see the full picture and decide what this symbol means for your own life. And if you value honest, thoughtful content like this, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Since the beginning of history, people have asked why life turns out the way it does. When something painful happens, like losing a job or failing an exam, many say, "This is my destiny." This idea gives a kind of comfort because it makes events feel part of a bigger plan instead of random pain. Psychologists explain that the human brain naturally looks for patterns and meaning, even when events are complex or unclear. This tendency is well studied in cognitive science and is sometimes called pattern seeking. It helps us survive, but it can also make us believe that everything is fixed or controlled by fate. This does not prove destiny is false, but it shows why the idea feels natural to the human mind. Cultures around the world created stories to explain this feeling. Before modern science, stories were the main way to teach values and life lessons. In India, many ideas about life, duty, and spiritual growth were shared through epics and Puranic stories. These texts, including stories about Shiva, are religious and symbolic literature. They are meaningful for believers, but historians and scholars agree they are not meant to be scientific records. Instead, they often use powerful images to talk about inner struggles such as fear, desire, pride, and wisdom. This method of teaching through symbols is common in many traditions, not only in Hinduism. When we hear about Shiva's third eye, it is helpful to understand this background. The image of an extra eye is not presented in medical science as a real body part. Rather, most scholars and teachers describe it as a symbol of higher awareness or insight. That does not reduce its importance. Symbols can shape how people think and act. The key point here is that humans create and follow destiny stories because we need meaning. We fear uncertainty. Our brains search for patterns, and cultures pass wisdom through symbolic storytelling. Understanding this helps us explore the topic with respect, but also with honesty and clear thinking. When we look at what Hindu scriptures actually describe, it is important to understand the type of literature we are reading. Stories about Shiva's third eye appear mainly in Puranic texts, such as the Shiva Purana, and in later retellings found in devotional traditions. These texts are part of sacred mythology. They are meaningful for spiritual teaching and faith, but historians and scholars do not treat them as modern, historical, or scientific documents. This does not reduce their value for believers. It simply helps us read them in the right way. Many teachers explain that such stories use strong images to express inner truths about the mind, discipline, and awareness. Shiva is often described in these texts as a yogi, someone deeply absorbed in meditation, detached from worldly desires. One well-known story tells of Kamadeva, the god linked with desire and attraction, trying to disturb Shiva's meditation. In the story, Shiva opens his third eye and burns Kamadeva. Taken literally, this sounds like a supernatural event. However, many traditional commentators and modern scholars interpret this as symbolic. Desire can distract the mind, and spiritual practice often teaches control over impulses. In this reading, the fire of the third eye represents intense awareness that removes the hold of uncontrolled desire. This is an interpretation, not a scientific claim, and different believers may understand it differently. The third eye in these stories often opens at moments of deep meditation or great inner focus. Shiva is not shown using it for everyday action, but in special moments tied to spiritual power. There is no medical or scientific evidence that a physical eye or energy beam exists in the human forehead. That belongs to the religious story world. Being clear about this is part of honest discussion. The key ideas from the scriptures are that the third eye appears in mythological texts. Shiva is shown as a meditating yogi. The Kamadeva story links the eye with overcoming desire, and the fire is widely understood as symbolic of spiritual insight rather than a physical force. When many teachers explain the meaning of Shiva's third eye, they describe it as a symbol of inner awareness rather than a physical organ. We normally use two eyes to see the outer world, shapes, colors, movement, and people. But human life is also shaped by thoughts, emotions, habits, and beliefs that are not visible. The idea of a third eye is often used to represent the ability to look inward and understand these inner processes. This is a symbolic explanation shared by many spiritual teachers and scholars. It is not a medical claim. There is no scientific evidence of an extra eye in the forehead. Instead, the symbol points toward deeper understanding, self-observation, and clear thinking. In many traditions, the fire from Shiva's third eye is said to destroy. In symbolic interpretation, destruction does not always mean physical harm. It can mean the removal of ignorance, false ideas, or harmful attitudes. In daily life, learning the truth about a mistake can feel painful, but it helps us grow. For example, someone may believe they always fail because of bad luck. Later, they may realize poor planning or fear of trying is the real cause. This moment of honest insight can burn away the false belief. This explanation connects the myth to psychological growth. It is an interpretation, and believers may also hold devotional meanings, but many educators use this approach to make the story practical. Another common idea linked with the third eye is control over ego. Ego here means an inflated sense of I, pride, or the need to always be right. In relationships, ego can create conflict because a person refuses to listen or admit mistakes. When teachers say the third eye opens, they often mean awareness becomes strong enough to see one's own faults clearly. In yogic belief systems, this is sometimes connected to the Ajna chakra, said to be a center of insight. Chakra theory is part of spiritual tradition and is not confirmed by modern anatomy, and it is important to say that clearly. Still, as a symbol, the third eye brings together inner awareness, the removal of ignorance, and the calming of ego. There are moments in life when everything seems to go wrong, and people say, "This must be my bad destiny." A student studies but still fails an exam. Someone prepares well for a job but gets rejected, or a small business loses money after a risky decision. These experiences are painful and real, and it is natural to look for a big explanation. However, psychology shows that when we face failure, strong emotions like fear, shame, and sadness can affect how we think. Stress can narrow attention and reduce clear judgment. Researchers have found that high stress can make problem-solving harder and can push people toward negative thinking. In such moments, destiny can feel like the easiest answer, even if many factors are involved. Another important idea from psychology is called learned helplessness. This term, studied since the work of Martin Seligman and others, describes a state where people stop trying to change their situation after repeated setbacks. They begin to believe that nothing they do will help. This belief is not always based on full evidence, but on past painful experiences. When someone feels helpless, effort drops, and this can lead to more failure, which then seems to confirm the idea of bad destiny. This cycle shows how thoughts can shape outcomes, not only external fate. Habits also play a big role. Daily actions, like how we manage time, money, health, and relationships, slowly build long-term results. If a person often avoids planning, delays work, or reacts with anger, these patterns can create repeated problems. Over time, repeated outcomes may look like fate, but they often come from repeated behavior. This does not mean life is fully under control. Accidents and outside events also happen. Still, many outcomes are influenced by patterns we can change. When we connect this to the idea of the third eye as awareness, the message becomes practical. Seeing clearly how stress affects thinking, how helplessness develops, and how habits shape results is like opening an inner eye. It helps move from "this is my destiny" toward "these are factors I can understand and improve," while still being honest that some parts of life remain uncertain. If we think of the third eye as awareness, we can see how it becomes practical in daily life, not as magic, but as a mental skill. One simple example is the pause before reaction. When someone insults us, or when we face sudden stress, the brain can move quickly into anger or fear. Studies in psychology show that strong emotions activate fast response systems, while slower, thoughtful processes need a moment to engage. Taking even a short pause, such as a few deep breaths, can help a person respond more calmly. This small space between event and reaction is a real, trainable skill, often taught in mindfulness practices, and it can prevent many problems in relationships and work. Another part of this practical awareness is seeing our own mistakes clearly. This is not about blaming ourselves harshly, but about honest self-observation. Research on learning and performance shows that people improve faster when they can notice errors and adjust. For example, an athlete reviewing a game or a student checking why an answer was wrong can grow more than someone who ignores feedback. In daily life, this might mean noticing that poor sleep affects mood, or that avoiding hard tasks leads to stress later. This kind of clear seeing is similar to the symbolic idea of the third eye, bringing light to hidden patterns. Awareness also helps with decisions driven by strong desire. Many common problems, such as overspending, unhealthy habits, or staying in harmful relationships, are linked to short-term desire overpowering long-term well-being. Psychology studies self-control and show that planning, reflection, and awareness of triggers can reduce impulsive choices. This is not about denying all pleasure, but about balance. Finally, this approach is not supernatural. It is based on mental discipline, habits, and emotional regulation, all areas studied in psychology and health sciences. While the third eye is a spiritual symbol in tradition, the practical lesson is clear. By observing ourselves, pausing before reacting, learning from mistakes, and thinking beyond short-term desire, we shape our direction in life in realistic and measurable ways. Understanding destiny is not about believing we are fully controlled by fate, but about seeing how our efforts, beliefs, and mindset shape outcomes. Many spiritual traditions, including Hinduism, introduce the idea of karma, which suggests that actions influence future results. This does not mean every event is fixed or predetermined. Rather, it emphasizes that our choices matter. Belief in karma can motivate people to act responsibly, but psychology and modern research add another layer. Our brains are capable of change through learning and practice. Neuroscience has demonstrated neuroplasticity, which shows that repeated practice, reflection, and habit formation can physically reshape neural pathways, improving skills, self-control, and resilience. Growth mindset research also supports this idea. Studies by Carol Dweck and others show that people who believe they can improve through effort and learning achieve better long-term outcomes than those who see abilities as fixed. For example, a student who initially struggles in math can succeed with consistent practice and feedback, demonstrating that effort changes results over time. Similarly, someone recovering from illness, financial difficulty, or emotional setbacks can rebuild stability through consistent actions, rather than waiting for luck or predetermined destiny. Real-life transformation examples are everywhere. People born into poverty, limited opportunities, or family struggles often achieve success by learning, adapting, and persisting. These stories do not deny that life presents challenges or random difficulties, but they highlight that awareness, effort, and conscious decisions can guide outcomes. In this context, the symbolic third eye of Shiva can be understood as the moment of insight when someone sees the patterns in their life clearly, recognizes choices that influence results, and acts wisely. This third eye moment is not magic, but a shift in perspective. It is when a person realizes that their reaction to situations, their habits, and their learning shape their life. Awareness allows them to notice repeated patterns, identify where change is possible, and act with intentional effort. By combining spiritual symbolism, belief in karma, scientific understanding of brain flexibility, research on mindset, and real-world examples of transformation, we can see that destiny is influenced by both factors beyond our control and factors we can actively shape, offering a balanced, motivational, and actionable view of life. The deepest lesson from the idea of Shiva's third eye is that it represents courage to face truth. Life often presents situations that are uncomfortable, painful, or confusing. Many people avoid looking directly at problems, preferring excuses or distraction. The symbolic third eye encourages us to confront reality honestly, to see the causes of our difficulties without fear. This does not mean we can control every outcome, but it gives power to face life clearly. Acceptance of reality is not passive resignation. It is understanding what is real so we can act wisely, a concept recognized both in spiritual teachings and in modern psychology. When we combine acceptance with choice, life begins to feel less like a predetermined path and more like a journey we can influence. Some things, like natural disasters or sudden illness, are beyond control. Others, like our responses, habits, learning, and effort, can be guided intentionally. This balance between what is given and what we can shape is the heart of practical awareness. Awareness, represented by the third eye, is therefore not about predicting the future or wielding power over others. It is about seeing clearly, making conscious choices, and taking responsibility for what is possible. The power of awareness can be applied at any age. Children can learn habits of reflection. Adults can adjust patterns formed over years, and older people can use experience to guide thoughtful action. Each stage of life benefits from the ability to pause, observe, and act with clarity. Awareness reduces impulsive mistakes and helps in building relationships, managing stress, and making better decisions in health, career, and personal growth. Finally, awareness itself is an inner strength. It gives a sense of calm and confidence because decisions are based on observation rather than reaction. Symbolically, Shiva's third eye teaches that the real power is not external or supernatural, but internal, available to anyone willing to cultivate mindfulness, reflection, and insight. By combining courage, acceptance, intentional action, and inner observation, people can shape their lives meaningfully, respecting what is beyond control while fully engaging with what they can influence. The third eye, whether taken as symbol or inspiration, reminds us that awareness is a guiding light through the challenges of destiny, giving clarity, strength, and hope to everyone, regardless of age or situation. After exploring the stories, symbolism, and practical lessons of Shiva's third eye, we can see that it teaches something very important for life. The third eye is not a physical eye that shoots fire or controls the world, and there is no scientific evidence to suggest that it is a literal power. Instead, it is a symbol that shows the value of awareness, self-reflection, and inner strength. Across cultures and traditions, people have used myths and stories to help explain ideas that are hard to understand, such as the ways our mind works, how our habits shape our lives, and how facing reality honestly can help us grow. Understanding these stories clearly helps us separate belief from fact, which allows us to take useful lessons without misunderstanding them. The main idea of the third eye is that real power comes from awareness. When we pause before reacting, observe our own habits and mistakes, and think carefully about our choices, we act in ways that guide our life toward better results. Life is a mix of events we cannot control and actions we can influence, and awareness helps us focus on what we can change. It allows us to see patterns in our behavior, correct mistakes, and act with patience and care. By practicing awareness and reflection, people of any age can make better decisions, improve relationships, manage stress, and create a sense of balance in daily life. In the end, the lesson of the third eye is not about magic or fear, but about hope and personal growth. Awareness gives courage to face problems, clarity to make choices, and strength to influence the part of life that we can control. It reminds us that while some events may be beyond our power, we can always work on ourselves, shape our habits, and guide our own path. By understanding this symbol and applying it in real life, we can turn stories of destiny into lessons of growth, insight, and meaningful action that benefit anyone willing to learn, observe, and act wisely.